I am Amy Gillentine. I'm the publisher and executive editor of the publishing house here, which includes the Colorado Springs Indy, the Business Journal, the Pikes Peak Bulletin, the Southeast Express, and 2 military newspapers.
Great. And Mary Jo, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Mary Jo Mead, and I am the other managing editor over the Indy and the Business Journal. Welcome.
And Glenn?
Hey, I'm Glenn Wallace. I am the editor for the Southeast Express.
Great, thank you. And Lindsay, if you can introduce yourself for everybody who's watching this.
Sure, absolutely. It's wonderful to meet you all. My name is Lindsay Moore. I am running for El Paso County Commissioner District 1.
Fantastic. Okay, so first of all, can you tell us why you're running?
Yeah, absolutely. So running for El Paso County Commissioner wasn't something I originally, that wasn't on my radar. And it was something that really the Lord told me to do. And, you know, God is a really big part of my life. He guides my life, and he's the rock on which everything rotates. And so when it was brought to my attention several times, I didn't acquiesce right away. You know, much like Moses, I said, why? I don't want to do this. I don't know. And, you know, after a lengthy discussion with the Lord and several weeks of prayer, I decided that, you know, the people needed somebody who was going to represent their voice. The people needed somebody who was going to stand up and make their voice heard. And I decided that that was something that was more important than what I currently had going on.
For people who might not know, can you explain what the El Paso County Commissioners do?
Absolutely. So the El Paso County Commissioners are mostly the legislative arm of the state. They're also the administrators of several programs all over the county. So I kind of liken it to like the county bus, right? So everybody knows the story of the magic school bus, the little yellow bus that has the wheels that go round and round. So El Paso County has a school bus with lots of wheels, and those wheels facilitate all sorts of programs all over the county. And so the commissioners are the administrators of all of those programs. They levy taxes, they approve contracts, you know, they work with the Planning Commission, they work with state programs, you know, like the Department of Health and Human Services and those sort of things. We also hold the budgets for a lot of the things that we do in El Paso County.
Can you tell us about your background and how you feel it qualifies you for this office?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a Colorado native. I've lived in Colorado my entire life. Ironically, I tried to leave Colorado several times, and the Lord kept me here. I went to school here, and I married a military man thinking, you know, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to do something. It's going to be awesome. And ironically, we never left. And so the Lord has given me the opportunity to work with several groups and folks all over El Paso County that do make me completely qualified. I've been in public service for most of my life. So I have a background in exercise science and physical therapy. And I also worked for several years as an administrator for a nonprofit. So I'm well-versed in administrative and budgeting, as well as I worked with our military community. I'm what's called I work with the National Guard. So they have family programs there at the National Guard. Have you guys heard of it? Have you heard of their little family programs situation? Yes. So I'm the facilitator of my husband's unit where I help the families transition. So if we're on a deployment, it is my job specifically to make sure that those military families get the help that they need if they're in need of anything. You know, it can be food, it can be funds, it could be counseling, you know, anything that they need for themselves and their kids. But also recently have spent several years working in an administrative position that would lend me to be fully capable at this.
What do you see as the biggest issues facing the county?
There's a lot of issues facing the county. From my perspective, and I believe from a lot of folks' perspective in the county, we have several top things. Number one, we've got a lot of issues with our election systems that I believe a lot of constituents, their voices are not being heard on. Number two, you know, we've got a lot of tax increases that are our constituents are facing that they're really not happy about. Number three, we've got a lot of road issues that are happening all over the county that I know that people are concerned aren't being addressed as well.
On your website, you say in the November 2021 election, our county sent our voting result numbers up to the Secretary of State, who inflated the totals by 25%. Can you tell us specifically what you're alleging there and what the evidence is?
So this actually, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder himself, you can ask him specifically about this situation. So if you were following the school board races in November of 2021, you will see that there were things posted on the news in those specific school board races. So we waited an extra 2 hours for the results. And when the results were posted on the news, there was one person who, it flashed on the news screen, said she received 100,000, 110,000 votes herself. And in that particular district, in District 20, you can't receive, one person cannot receive 110,000 votes based on the fact that there were 10 people in that particular race. And so those results were quickly taken down. They were pulled back. Chuck Broerman called the Secretary of State and said, oh, you know, you didn't do that right. The Secretary of State said, oh, yes, that was our fault. We accidentally inflated the numbers. Chuck Broerman then got on the phone, and this is a fact. You can call Chuck Broerman, ask him. He got on the phone with the Secretary of State and said, oh, those numbers are not right. Let me show you how to fix them. And so then later they fixed the numbers, meaning they retyped the numbers in based on what Chuck Broerman said, which leaves that election highly questionable when you have a lot of those things that the Secretary of State and Chuck Broerman were doing to fix it.
What's your leadership style?
What's my leadership style?
How would you describe it?
You lead by example.
Can you give us some illustrations?
Illustrations would be actions speak louder than words, right? So if I'm not willing to be, as a commissioner, on the ground with the constituents, how can I lead and say, this is the way that we should go, if I'm not willing to step out first and say, we should go here and we should do this?
So your campaign site says in one place, why has our 100% conservative Board of County Commissioners taken so long to stand against the tyrannical abuse from the state capitol? Do you think the county commissioners are not political enough? And can you outline for us what you're seeing as the tyrannical abuse from the capitol?
So that's a two-faced question. The first part of your question I would answer and say, the Board of County Commissioners has not spent enough time addressing the issues that are coming down from the state. So what the people really want and what I'm hearing on the ground. So this goes back to leading by example, being with the people, being willing to listen to the people and hear their concerns, is that the state government is abusing the people. The state government is overreaching. They're going far past what they should in a state legislature. Now, the El Paso County Commissioners consider themselves a constitutional board. And if you're a constitutional board and you're not standing up for the Constitution that is constantly being threatened and for the people and saying, no, this is not what we should be doing. Now, you can stand from the dais and you can say, yeah, I disagree with that. But being on the ground with the people and being willing to try to make changes at the same time as a leader, by example, saying, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, let's go together, let's see what changes we can make. For example, one of the tyrannical abuses from the state, I believe, is the new bill, SB 153. So we should never centralize anybody's local authority in one spot, right? That's how a government becomes tyrannical, when you're centralizing the people's power under one person. So when that bill came down, the only commissioner who went up there to testify was Lojinos Gonzalez. The only commissioner fighting against that bill was Lojinos Gonzalez. I feel that they could have done way more for the people, to listen to the people and take action for the people against those abuses.
Do you have some other issues that you've been hearing from people where you were saying there are other issues where people are seeing overreach on behalf of the Capitol? Are there some others?
Yes, there's quite a few examples. For instance, I'm going to use the bill that they're trying to put on the ballot this November. So that bill is the one about the school lunches. So for instance, the school lunches, we already have a free and reduced lunch program that I know a lot of folks take advantage of. And I know that there are folks who need that, which is fantastic. But when you're trying to single out a single group of taxpayers and make that particular group of taxpayers foot the bill for free lunches for everyone, that's not a fair program, right? So we already have something in place that provides and is based on income for those who need it. Why are we going to punish a particular group of taxpayers and say you are going to now pay an extra fee to feed everybody? That's not something that I believe should be done. Now, they will tell you that there's a lot of extra families who are currently in need of lunches. That may be true, but that's because we have inflation that is skyrocketing from our government. We also have taxes that are skyrocketing and gas prices that are skyrocketing. So overall, our families are suffering on a high level. But if you're going to take one specific section of taxpayers and make them pay for everybody, that's an overreach and an abuse of our government.
How do you compromise or collaborate with those who hold different views to you or different political views? How would you reach across the aisle on contentious issues?
So contentious issues are one thing, but this is, working together as a team takes a lot of effort on both sides. So you can't just tell one side, you need to reach across the aisle. Both sides have to be willing to say, I'll come to the table if you come to the table. Now, I'm 100% able to work and willing to work with those who want to work together. But that does not mean I'm going to compromise my values to reach across the aisle to somebody I don't believe is going to benefit everybody. So if they're unwilling to see that what's best for the people is over here, then I'm not going to compromise my values to make it better for them.
How would you address affordable housing concerns?
This is a big issue in Colorado Springs with the tax rates, the housing market the way it is, with inflation and gas prices, the fact that we don't have housing that is affordable for everybody. And, a lot of people in Colorado Springs aren't making enough money to make ends meet right now. That is a big issue. And, I know that the commissioners just earmarked taxpayer money for affordable housing. What I don't think we should do is take taxpayer funds to pay for affordable housing. That defeats the purpose. So we have a government who has created this problem, and we're trying to find a solution from the government for this problem. I don't believe that is the correct solution. There's got to be a way for us to find something to do affordable housing. And I don't want to say incentivize those folks to come bring affordable housing here, but the fact of the matter is that we've got an economy right now that's not friendly for anyone. It's not friendly in gas prices because you can't ask them to live over here or over there because they can't pay for the gas to drive to their job. So this is going to take all of us coming together. This is going to take the city, it's going to take the county, and it's going to take a lot of people coming together trying to find an issue or find a way to make this better for our residents.
What should the commission do for fire prevention in the county?
The commission is actually is worked with the Office of Emergency Management, and they're working on some things, but we can improve what we've been doing. There's a lot of folks that I've actually been talking to over in the Black Forest area And each fire district is a little bit different, and each fire district runs things a little bit different. And I believe that this is a time where we should come together and bring each fire district in the county together and say, let's have a talk. Let's all come together. What's your plan? I know you've got ideas. I know I've got ideas, but each section of the county is a little bit different, right? So Black Forest is a forest, you know, and we have the districts down in the south that are more prairie. So if there was, per se, a meeting of all of the commissioners and these fire districts together, it would benefit us greatly to find out, okay, hey, you're going to do this over here and I'm going to do this over here. And then we can come together and have a plan that everybody can view and work on. And then we can pass it to the community. And I'm actually very passionate about this because the community needs to be involved. We're never going to get this done with big government. It's going to be the citizens being involved in all of this, right? We need to coordinate our dispatches. So we have, you know, a problem with our response times. So our response times on average are very, very high. And I've actually heard from several constituents who have been put on hold when they call 911. That's unacceptable. And if people aren't communicating and they're unwilling to communicate with each other, that's putting citizens at risk. And I'm not okay with that. There's got to be a way for us to work together to create a better situation for our citizens.
Do you feel the county is addressing growth in an appropriate way?
I will tell you that we're in a very interesting situation. We are growing faster than is sustainable. Our resources are being stretched, in particular our water resources. And I feel like we could take a better proactive approach instead of being reactive. So right now we are reacting to the situation instead of looking forward into legacy thinking into 20 years, 40 years, what's going to happen with my grandchildren? So we're building where our infrastructure is not currently supporting. And that goes back to fire safety. So if we're building in an area, we need to put the infrastructure in before we're building it. And that means widening the roads, making sure we have water resources so that we can get people out. And I'll use Stetson Hills fire, you know, 2 weeks ago now as an example. I was actually in that area. I was in the Ross when the fire broke out. And if you're telling people to evacuate, the people don't know the evacuation plan, the roads get clogged and people start to panic. There were school buses on the road and our kids couldn't get home safely. I feel like we could do better at that for sure.
Your website says you're endorsed by Restore Liberty. Can you tell people what Restore Liberty is and why you wanted their endorsement?
Actually, Restore Liberty reached out to me and invited me to, you know, and said, hey, you know, these are our tenants, and they're all about restoring the liberty and the constitutionality of our nation to its original intent. So what that means is using the Constitution that our founding fathers put forth as a basis for our government, which is exactly what that is. And so I was happy to receive Restore Liberty's endorsement because I am 100% of the belief that our country was founded by some gentlemen who believed 100% in divine providence, and God led them to this place and put this document together that said, this is how we should govern ourselves. And to restore that, right? So you were asking me about government overreach. So when we bring that back to the table and we say, these things are government overreach, which means they do not follow the Constitution. So that's what that means. We're bringing back our original intent of how we should govern ourselves.
How should the county and the city be working together?
They're not doing a great job of communicating right now. You know, if the county and the city work together, dispatch would work a lot better with our fire, especially on the county level. That's been a huge issue for some of the county folks, especially the ones that have been experiencing being put on hold. And if you've ever been in an emergency situation, the last thing you need to hear is, I'm sorry, can you hold? That's unacceptable. And so that's an area where we can definitely definitely improve. And the second area is that, you know, we have this interesting, I guess you could say, issue. I don't want to use the word issue, but I'm trying to find the other word I'm looking for. Over on Mark Shuffle Boulevard, where we have some areas of Mark Shuffle are county and some areas are city. And some of our citizens over there are experiencing things that they're not okay with, where they're not getting plowed, they're not getting response times from whether it be city or county police or fire. And they don't understand why certain areas of Mark Shuffle are city and certain areas are county, but they don't know that. And so if there was a better line of communication, number one, to the citizens, but also between the city and the county in those particular areas, we could take care of the citizens on a much higher level and communicate with them. You're in city property, you're in county property, but that creates a very confusing situation for folks. And I feel like there's some improvement that we can for sure do there.
I'm going to turn to everybody else now and see who else has some questions. Except you're going to have to tell me if your mic is off because I can't see
Sorry.
everybody on the screen.
I've got a question. How did you feel about the El Paso County Board of Commissioners giving $500,000 to the Olympic Museum? Do you feel that that was a reasonable expenditure of public tax dollars?
I will tell you that our public tax dollars should be used in other places, at least from my perspective. I know that the Olympics Museum is important and that there's folks that really like it, but I do believe we're in a position right now where the public feels that their tax dollars are not being used to the best of our ability.
Another question. You seem to be very strong Christian, and I'm assuming that there will be many constituents in the district that you would serve who are not Christians. It just kind of feels on the receiving end as if you would manage from your faith. And I'm wondering how you feel you would reconcile that with the faith of, with all other faiths amongst your constituents who may have completely different religious backgrounds and might object to your basically governing from the position of your faith.
Well, I want you to know that I'm never going to judge anybody by their religious background. And if they've got an issue that's happening in the county and they're bringing it to me, yes, I will govern according to God's governance, but I will never use that as something to be a weapon against somebody else, because that's completely inappropriate. And I will do what's right regardless of my faith.
Okay.
I had a few questions, Ellen.
Go ahead.
You talked about the school lunch program specifically, and how is your issue with lunch, free lunch for all the students, or is your issue with the funding mechanism?
It's totally with the funding mechanism. It has nothing to do with whether or not these folks should receive free or reduced lunch. If that's something that they need, absolutely, they should get it. But I don't believe the state legislature should be involved in saying this group of taxpayers should be the ones paying for it.
You also indicated that you didn't think the county should have given $500,000 to the Olympic Museum. How would you have spent that money?
You know, right now we have a lot of folks who are questioning where their money is going as far as where and how fast our roads are being improved. And frankly, I question the same thing, because we have a tax that comes through the PPRTA. You know, it's our sales tax. And there's a lot of money that gets funded that way. And we're still suffering. I mean, you guys drive on the roads. Tell me, are you okay when you drive down the road? Or are you going, oh, you know, my car it takes a beating, and we want to know why. You know, I'm not going to wait. I don't want to wait 3 years for you to tell me I'm going to fix the potholes on Union Boulevard when our taxes are actually supposed to be earmarked for 15 to 20 years out. So the taxes they take now are supposed to be for 15 to 20 years. for those particular improvements. So what my question is why are we giving $5 million to the Olympic Museum when I'm still driving on roads that make, my car rattle and fall apart?
Okay, and just a few more, sorry, Helen.
No, go for
Talked
it.
about Restore Liberty. You indicated that they were supportive of the original Constitution, which, as you know, has been amended several times since then to include opening rights to other people. Do you support the Constitution as it's now written, or would you prefer the original document?
I'm wondering what you're inferring
I'm
by,
specifically asking about the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, which was not in the original document. The 14th Amendment, which was not in the original document.
Mhm.
The amendment that abolished slavery, which was not in the original document.
Mhm.
The right to search and seizure, protection against search and seizure, not in the original document. So there are several changes. The document has been changed since the original founders wrote it many, many times. So I'm asking you, when you say original document and original intent, that was very limited. So I'm asking you
Correct.
what your feelings are about that. I'm asking you to clarify that.
Sure. So our current Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
Okay. Okay, and then you talked a lot about government overreach, and so I'm wondering what you believe the role of government should be in business and economic development.
In business and economic development.
Yes.
So, all our government should be local, right? So all government starts at the local level. And what that means is that our government should be limited in specific things, meaning the more that we legislate, the more rules that we make, and the more restrictions that we put on those who would like to achieve a small business, those who want to have the freedom to run their own business or have something inside of our economy, the harder it is for them to achieve. And we don't want to restrict the achievement of our of those who have that dream, right? So it's gonna make it harder and more expensive, which in turn affects our economy, right? Which is why houses can be so expensive, because the more we legislate the building of certain things, or the more we legislate controlling this particular part, the harder it is for them to succeed. And we want to make sure that our small businesses are supported and that we can grow our economy in a responsible manner.
So you would be supportive then of businesses setting their own pricing as far as what they charge for the houses they built, and setting their own prices for what they pay in labor and things like that, and have government out of those out of that arena.
Government should definitely be limited in that arena for sure.
I think that's all I had. Sorry.
Another question. We have another variant, yet another variant of the virus headed our way, and in other parts of the country, they're already reinstituting requirements for wearing masks. How do you feel about those requirements in El Paso County? Should the need arise, or should we be advised by state health department, local health department, and the federal government to start wearing masks again?
I think it's up to each and every individual. I'm 100% for medical freedom. So whoever decides that they want to control whatever it is that there is no constitutional amendment for let's control your medical health. It is up to each and every individual. You are responsible for your medical health. And if they're putting out things that you should pay attention to and be concerned about, that's absolutely what you should do. You should pay attention, and you should make sure that you as a citizen are taking whatever you need from that.
So you basically are not in favor of requiring people to wear masks?
I'm in favor of people doing what they need to do for themselves. So if they want to do that, that's totally up to them. If they don't want to do that, that's totally up to them.
Got it.
When you said you were 100% in favor of medical freedom, does that include abortion rights?
I'm 100% pro-life. So because
How do you justify
Reconcile.
the dichotomy in those two statements, that on one hand, you're 100% medical freedom, on the other hand, this is a medical procedure that you want to control?
So we're talking about a virus versus a human life. Those are two totally different things. That's a totally different platform. So I will tell you, on one hand, I am 100% pro-life and everybody deserves a birthday. But when we're talking about a virus, that's a totally different thing. And you as a person are responsible for your own behaviors in that arena. I do not believe abortion should ever be a medical right. You should not take human life so lightly. And we're not going to talk about what particular is going on over there at Roe versus Wade, because 100% human life is a non-negotiable. Won't negotiate on that.
As a government decision is what you're saying, that government controls that.
No, government should never control whether you are allowed to.
Is
Pardon
that
me,
not
human
government
life-
overreach of the most extreme kind?
Human life should not be a government decision as to decide whether somebody lives or dies. So when I say babies' lives are not a government decision, they're not. Babies' lives should not be ruled by the Supreme Court. Babies' lives, God has given us life.
Your God.
My God.
So, okay, Helen, I think we'll turn it back over to you.
I'm going to see if Glenn has any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, Glenn.
Still there?
That was riveting, so I didn't want to interrupt. Just while we're on the subject, really quick, when does life begin?
Life begins at the moment of conception.
Okay. So as a commissioner, would you be in favor of, there's certain types of procedures or quote unquote birth control that would interfere with the implantation of a fertilized egg in a uterus. So as a government official, would you be looking to classify those as a type of abortion, something that you would oppose on those moral grounds that you've discussed?
As a commissioner, that's not something that I'm involved in. On a personal level, I can tell you that I don't believe that is something that folks should engage in, because again, if you're taking those kind of steps, you are essentially taking life.
Okay.
But that's not the responsibility of the commissioner.
Okay. And then just to wheel way back around, you talked about, in terms of fire protection, you mentioned that coordinating all these different fire districts, and that we do, just talking together, and increasing communication among all those groups. Beyond that, are there any, for instance, policies, county policies, decisions on growth, for instance, other steps that you think the county should take?
Okay, so there were two different facets to that question. We were talking about fire, and then you talked about growth. So if you want me to address each one individually, or would you like to?
Well, you talked a little bit about growth too, but as you already mentioned, there's a definite nexus there in terms of growth planning and fire safety into the future. And you talked about taking a longer view there. So with an eye towards fire safety, maybe, what are some steps you think the county should do at this time?
I'd like to relook at, in 2018, there was a fire impact fee that was proposed for all new home builds after the Black Forest fire. That's something that would help those particular districts fund their fire stations and the things that they needed to do for their communities. That fire impact fee was then tabled by the commissioners. So they chose not to address the issue when I know that the fire districts themselves were very concerned about it, and it would actually help fund them. I'd like to review that and see if that's a way we can bring something back to the table to help those districts.
Great.
Sorry, Glenn.
More questions.
You froze for a second. I couldn't tell if you were saying something. You froze for me.
I'm all good. Back to you.
Okay. Amy, Mary Jo, do you have any other questions?
No.
I just accidentally muted myself. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm having trouble hearing, which is why I'm leaning forward. So I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing.
Is there anything that we haven't addressed that you wanted to talk about?
Myself personally?
Yeah, are there any questions that we haven't covered that you wanted people to know about you or about why you're running?
Yeah, there's something I'd like the people to know. So first and foremost, I want the people to understand that I'm not a politician, right? I am an everyday average person, just like them. So I drive on the roads just like them. I pay taxes just like them. And I haven't served 20 years in El Paso County's governmental system, right? And my first and foremost job as their El Paso County Commissioner is to be somebody that represents the people's voice, right? I've been on the ground with the people. I've been walking the streets and talking to those folks who feel like they've been misrepresented and haven't been heard for the last 4 years. I've got a lot of folks who are really concerned about what's happening around the county, and they have been beating down doors that haven't been getting answered, emails that haven't been getting answered, and phone calls that don't get answered. And I will tell you that I take pride in the fact that my phone, I answer myself. My emails, I answer myself. And every constituent that I meet, I tell them that. I answer this myself. And it's important to me that I can hear your concerns and I can understand your concerns. So if you don't get an email back right away or in the first 3 days, it's because I'm doing my best to answer everything for you myself. And I take pride in that because the people's voice is important and they deserve to be honored and respected and heard. And I feel like they're not getting heard. From their perspective, they're not getting heard.
Okay, thank you. Amy, tell me if I'm right. The videos are supposed to go up around the beginning of June. Is that right? Can you give us a rundown on?
In the next few weeks, we will be putting them up on our website for our readers, and our endorsements will come out mid-June.
Can I sneak one last question? And I meant to ask this
sorry.
earlier. That's okay.
Sorry,
I meant to
Mary
ask
Jo.
it earlier and I wrote it down and then I spaced it. I'm sorry. You talked about a nonprofit that you ran?
No, I did not run a nonprofit. No, I was just an administrator.
And what nonprofit was that?
I'm not going to disclose that. They would like to remain private.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think we're finished. Thank you very much for your time today. And actually, I can't close the meeting, so.
That's my job. Thank you. Have a great weekend. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Stay safe.